We'll just wait for YouTube to stop showing everyone a black screen.
Always fun.
Always fun. Something's happening. YouTube has connected. It's showing my goddamn tweet wall, which is just way ahead of time. Let's flick back to the call. There we go. There we go. We're live. Ladies and gents, welcome to episode 88 of A. Thompson and Other Disappointments, your twice weekly delve into the worlds of politics, dystopia, and hopefully with a few doom lols along the way. If it's your first time listening, then congratulations for using your ears. If you were looking for a stimulating, well-researched weekly review of the depths and breadth of modern British politics, you are in luck, because I think Alistair Campbell's one is out, and it is rather good. I jest. Even Alistair Campbell says, you know what? I have worked in the nerve centre of government for years, and I have a lot of opinions on that, about all things politics. But honestly, Aid, what you bring to the table is a carefully constructed dossier of outlandish claims, Aid, frankly, and questionably sourced opinions. Big fan of the show is Campbell. He's always on the live chat, asking questions like, will you refrain from spouting nonsense about me in your live chat, Aid? But on that note, special hello to all of you joining us on the live stream tonight on YouTube, where there's a live chat feature for you to tell me that I look like a hungover rat, if you are anything like one of the recent commenters on there. That's lovely to read. Really, really love it. Really kicks my weekend off in the right way. Happy Jubilee to me. And also an extra special sensual and appropriate hugs welcome to Kerry and Paul, my two Patreons. And indeed to the chap that bought me a beer. This was 2 weeks ago now. A guy came on to buy me a coffee. I have a link for buy me a coffee. And I have it set up to buy me a beer instead, because that's more me, right? And it did have his name on there 2 weeks ago when he did it. But now I've gone back to go and find out his name to see what his name was so I can thank him at the beginnings and the ends of the episodes. And it's gone anonymous. So it's like he supported the show, bought me a beer, but then clearly it takes 2 weeks for the shame of supporting this to truly manifest. 2 weeks of consideration before he goes, hang on, I'm trying to run a cake and bake business, or I'm a prospective candidate for a parliamentary party. I can't be associated with Boris Fuck's livestock. Quick, change the name, delete the profile photo. 2 weeks later, gone. So now I can't thank whoever this anonymous guy was who bought me a beer. But thank you, anonymous dude. Could have also been a case of mistaken identity too. I think he could have gone on to the Buy Me a Coffee profile. And he didn't mean to donate it to me. He got it wrong, maybe. Let's not discount that very real possibility that he mistook my profile on there for someone else and thought the guy that he was buying a coffee to support was I don't know, Paul Giamatti or something. That's the only other person I've been told that I look like, other than a fucking rat. But at least it's not a rat, right? Anyway, look, gym people, any gym people, or people that just work for gyms, Fitness First, just consider that, right, from rat to Paul Giamatti in 1 year of healthy eating, going to the gym. Put that on your fucking posters. Where's my advertising contract? Before we get into this, and indeed before we get into mauling my guest tonight, feverishly interrogating him on his thoughts and feelings over the state of the world, quick pitch, all of the episodes of the podcast go on Patreon first. So if you want first access, and if you can't wait the 3 days delay in between doing the live streams and them going on to the other platforms, either jump on the live stream, as perhaps you may be tonight, and get involved in the live chat every Friday at 7:30, or jump on the Patreon and subscribe to one of the three, frankly, dirt cheap tiers that are on there. That is it. That's the boring sales pitch done. Sorry for shitting in your ear holes for those 40 seconds. My guest tonight is what you're all here for. My guest tonight is a returning favourite from the last 2 seasons. He's been on solo before, and we've discussed trans rights and J.K. Rowling and his journey into political comment. And we frequently form 2/3 of a filthy political three-way on here when he joins me and Supertansky. And the three of us try to make sense of the senseless togethers. His intellect, Tan's comedy, and my shameless riding on both of their coattails. We are the triple threat. He runs the highly influential, politically enraged blog, But you can also find him on Twitter and TikTok, where he speaks eloquently about everything from Tory corruption to tactical voting to trans rights. But most importantly, he's an all-round lovely chap, and I am psyched that he's found an hour to spend with me tonight, talking shit about the state of the world. Please welcome DavieMoo. Woo!
And that was a fantastic introduction that built me up to a fantastic height, which still isn't good enough, and I'm ashamed of you.
Oh, okay. I mean, I tried my best. I wrote that whilst chasing my daughter around the garden earlier. For some weird reason, I almost said chasing my girlfriend around the garden. It's got completely different connotations.
Whew. Careful, Ed. You're not Prince Andrew.
No. Evening to those of you in the chat. We've got Ricardo, Josh. Hey, Josh. Loopy Lou, Tanzin, Rachel. Busy night tonight. Hope all of you guys are doing excellent. Most importantly, though, Davey, how are you?
I am fine. I will in advance apologise for the fact that I may occasionally have to leap forward and hit the mute button because I've still got a cough from that goddamn chest infection.
Oh, dear.
And frankly, from choking on my old rage constantly because of the absolute state of fuckery that has become British politics. But other than that, I'm fine. How are you doing?
I'm okay, yeah. I've had a bit of a weird week with the kids. Nothing really politically related. But both my kids have had this weird bug where they've completely gone off their food. Like, so my daughter is like almost 18 months old and she didn't eat for 5 days. And my son just had this weird night where he's just burning up and not coughing. Like, it's not COVID. There's nothing COVID-y about it. But I don't know. Both of them have just been a bit off. So as a dad, I've been sort of shitting my pants a little bit this week. Like, oh no, like what have we done to them?
There has been a lot going around, though. I've noticed. It's like, as you've been in the group chat with me while I've been recording for a while. Every time I did a voice, it was like, "Hello, Sydney, are you alone in the house?" It was fucking terrible. So I think there's just diseases rife at the minute.
I've heard that it's something along the lines of, like, because everyone stayed in for so long, not mixing, not breathing in each other's horrible germs. That our immune systems have sort of declined. I don't know if that's scientifically accurate, but I've read that in a place.
It could be. I do remember when I started uni, and obviously everyone warns you about the freshers flu. Yeah. Man, did I get a case of the freshers flu. I ended up being on steroids, and I had to take 8 of them a day, like these tiny little pills.
Yeah.
And, oh, God, I just remember how long it took me to get over that. It was a nightmare.
Are you sure this was like flu medication? Because, freshers, students going out, people dishing out pills. I'm just saying.
I mean, it is possible. I was very easily misled back in the old days.
And so you felt under the weather, or it's all coming together.
Oh God, no! I'm not the main one in my family who like accidentally takes drugs. I do have some fantastic stories about that I've been told throughout the years.
Good. Well, I look forward to picking away that scab on another episode of the podcast. But tonight we have, as usual, 2 or 3 topics to peel the onion of.
We do.
A lot's happened in the last week. We've had the latest episode in the 10 box set series of Partygate. We've had the Jubilee weekend, is obviously what we're in at the moment. And we've also had the Depp Heard trial has reached its conclusion over the last few days. I'm keen to get your thoughts on each of these topics. Mm-hmm. So let's just jump into it. First question, bit of a psychological one, if you'll indulge me, as I sit back in my armchair psychologist chair. Obviously, right, so it's the Jubilee weekend, and there is a cliche among the left, I think, that we all hate the royals. I feel like that's something that gets wheeled out. Is like when there's a big royal occasion, people always mock the Guardian for kind of being a bit snooty about it. And there's this, I think, misunderstanding that we all want it abolished, that princesses should be dragged from the tower and hung in the town square. And, clearly that's not 100% accurate. There's only one member of the royal family that we actually want to see dragged out of a castle and then put in stocks and pilloried with rotten veg. And that is Prince George, an evil child. I mean, he's, by far and wide the most evil member of, already. And he's not even, how old is he? And it's not even close. He's clearly the most evil.
I don't know. Reminds me of that kid from The Omen.
Yes, I also get Omen vibes from him. Just a mean child with an evil heart. I think we can agree on that. Who feasts on blood of babies.
Obviously.
Yeah, I joke. But not about that. But no, just going back to my original point, there's a cliche among some circles that the left sort of hate the royals, that we're fundamentally against the royals. Why do you think that is? What do you think it is about someone who subscribes to sort of left-leaning ideology that might also make them go, I don't like the royal family?
If you ask me, the fundamentals of leftist politics is that everybody is, or at least should be treated the same, regardless of their advantages. Like it shouldn't matter that you were born in a castle, or, for example, you were born in New York and
Right.
started out as a dual citizen. Not that I'm thinking of anyone in particular, but it's this idea that because the queen was born of royalty, she should be royalty, and therefore she is superior to you and I and anybody else listening to this right now. She's been given a life of immense privilege. And then, I had this discussion with Marina Perkis yesterday. Like, it's not that I'm saying that the queen doesn't like work hard necessarily,
Mm.
but I wish that I had like 27 assistants who tell me what to do and tell me what to say and get me dressed and pick out my outfit. And I just go there and I go, hello, my name's David, and this is a beautiful building that I'm opening today, and I hope you all enjoy it. Right, can I go now? Because that's essentially royal duties. And
Yeah, that's an important point. It's sort of like nobody's denying that she works hard, certainly for a woman in her 90s, right?
mhm,
Uh, but harder than a nurse? Like,
this is the thing. I think we get told a lot that, the people that work hard. I don't even think that Boris Johnson doesn't work hard in the sense that he does a lot of things. It's just that the things that he's doing are, like sticking his claws into democracy and tearing it asunder. But like, it's a different kind of working hard than someone who is working hard and still can't afford their mortgage and still can't really afford their food, and they're not really sure if their car's going to last till the end of the year,
mm,
and they're wondering if they're going to have to move to a smaller place and things like that. That's what working hard is. Working hard is better top up my incomprehensibly large sum of 12 billion estates. Like,
mm,
that's like, how can you work enough to earn that?
yeah.
How can you do it?
Yeah, so for you, it sort of comes down to a classic sort of question of meritocracy. So the illusion is in the UK that the harder you work, the more successful you will become, right? If you just put in enough effort, then you can also become a CEO. But we all kind of know how simplistic and ridiculous that is, because some people just have a significantly better start, is probably a polite way of putting it. But even the people who work really, really hard and get up to the point, who are now sort of, neck and neck with the people who had the head start, still they find themselves kind of oppressed, pushed out of the race, not taken seriously.
Absolutely. It's like, no one's denying that you can work to a certain level,
Mm.
but there's this myth that's pushed by like people like the Queen, like the Conservatives, like bloody Molly May, like Kim Kardashian, who say like, this millions is just like, it's just hard work away. You've got to make sure you don't sleep and sacrifice. And I'm like, all of you were born into families that already
Yeah.
had all these connections. You got given the places. And the other thing is as well, it's tied really intrinsically to education. And I've written a lot on my blog about how flawed the education system is and why that's by design.
Mm.
Like, they make education fail some people, because if we all got as educated as we could be and we were all brain surgeons and stuff, who the fucking hell would make the sandwiches?
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, do you think it's actually that sort of Machiavellian and devious, like from the top levels, or is it? I mean, it's sort of the system works, right? For that exact reason, you need people to do kind of quite menial, boring jobs. Otherwise, who the fuck would do them if you train everyone up to be a, wealth management consultant or whatever? Uh, but I don't know if it's that, if it's something that they sort of actively work on like that. I think that's the output of it, but actually the motive behind it, I think for most of them, like your sort of Rees Moggs, your Boris Johnsons, all those guys, and all of their friends in various offices across Canary Wharf, I think for them, it's actually just as simple as, yeah, well, I went to school and I worked hard, and then I met this guy at the golf club, and he gave me an internship, and yeah, well, you could do it too. I think it's just huge ignorance on their part.
I do agree with that, but I also think that it's like systemic racism. It was set up at some point, and now all we're doing is reinforcing it. Because
Mm,
if you look at the royal family, I am a loser, and I did some research. The Golden Chariot that's not been used in like 20 years, its estimated sale price is 1.5 billion. They live in a 12 billion estate. That's 12 million they paid out for Andrew's alleged indiscretions. It's 345 million for the taxpayer a year. This is all incomprehensibly large sums of money that we give every single year, or that just sit there and do nothing.
Yeah.
What if genuinely, what if we did deconstruct those things and gave them back to the public? How much better could we make people's lives with that money? Like, maintain it just means that we never actually know what could be, and maybe it isn't like purposely maintained, as in Boris Johnson sits there going, no, make them stupider, but he doesn't seek to change it, and we don't get improvements to it, so we don't know.
I think there's also a fear factor to it though as well. So like, where you've got, let's say I am a guy that works at Lloyd's, in the upper echelons of Lloyd's, and I'm on like 500 grand a year, and I get like a 100 grand bonus or some shit. I might actively donate to a party that seeks to perpetuate private education and Eton and all of that, for fear of that. Like, if everyone got a shot at the good jobs, at the good education, at the right networks, if everyone did that, that might dilute my 4 children's like chances. It might be less of a, I think there's a fear there, however kind of unfounded.
Well, it's very true. I think when you look at it that way and you realize that people do acknowledge it, because that's the other thing. That's the exact type of person that would tell you, well, all you have to do is work hard. I worked hard. But they know consciously, and that's why they choose to donate to those people. And even yesterday, there was someone on Twitter who, and I'm not even joking you, said with a complete straight face to me, no one has starved to death in Britain that hasn't chosen to. And I was like, how does one choose to starve to death exactly? And of course they were arguing with me, but I was just like, these are things that nobody chooses. It's circumstance and happenstance, and saying that people don't choose to be super rich and wealthy. And you can't exactly blame them for that. It's not their fault. But what you can do is blame them for a lack of perspective, because you have to acknowledge that you are in a privileged position and that you don't understand the status quo of loads of people around you. So when people come forward and say, my life is hard because I can't afford this, that, and the other, you shouldn't just go, well, I worked really hard and now I have it. It's like, okay. Yeah. And that doesn't feed my kids.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's a classic sort of, I think, self-ego strokey kind of trap that they fall into, where you approach them for help or to explain to them that some people are really fucking struggling. And instead of them listening and considering that and working out ways to help, what they actually do is turn the situation around and then turn it into a story about how they worked really hard and now they've got this, so it's like, look at me, I did this, aren't I great? It would be really interesting to just sort of cut them off mid-flow and go like, that's great, and we're all super proud of you, you've done so well, but this isn't a story about you, this is a story about the fucking food bank queue over there. Yeah.
The other thing that always makes me laugh as well, and I will, like, just to bring it down to a really simple level, YouTubers, right? I've spent most of this afternoon watching Jacksepticeye, who's one of the biggest gaming YouTubers out there. And his numbers are obscene, how many people are following him and all of those things. And that's brilliant. But you meet people who are like YouTubers and they've got like 600 subscribers. And that's good. That's a lot of people. 600 people. It's a lot.
It's not bad.
But the problem is, it's incomprehensible that people don't see that there's this thing called survivorship bias, because for every Jacksepticeye who's got millions and millions and millions and millions of followers, there's like 50,000 people behind him who only have 10,000, 8,000, 6,000, 1,000. Like, of course there's some people that can break out of it. Of course there's some people that can elevate their social class or whatever you want to call it. But that's by design. People have to be able to do it on a small scale to prove that you can do it.
Yeah. And it's interesting that you bring up the YouTuber example, because it's an example I always go back to precisely to use as a metaphor for this sort of Tory mentality that we're all up against, which is, if you imagine a YouTuber an American YouTuber who's like, 16 years old, and he's a handsome kid. He's got beautiful blonde hair, piercing blue eyes, chiseled jaw, objectively a beautiful kid. And he's on YouTube doing content about like, all you got to do to make it is like put a smile on your face and a song in your heart. And you could do, it's like, no, that's all you need to do. That's literally all you needed to do was like smile and just do a little lip sync and boom, you got 1 million followers. For the rest of us to grow to like fucking, I'm going off on a right rant here.
It's true though. We both know what the travails are because we're both trying to grow our following online for very specific reasons. And it's like, how sexy and big can you ever get talking about politics? Unless I'm like, hey guys, so tactical voting. Like it doesn't work, does it?
I don't know, it works a little bit.
I mean, I did see that twinkle in your eye, and all I'm saying is that I could make paid content. Can you imagine an OnlyFans full of like sexy political content?
I've considered starting an OnlyFans where people pay me to just shut the fuck up. Like it would just be like a sort of, blank screen. Chip in here, $5 a month. I won't bother you with any of my shit Instagram promo.
I've actually been thinking about starting an OnlyFans that's just me reading erotica through a fan. You look so sexy in that dress, blah, blah, blah.
It's kind of got Stephen Hawking vibes. I mean, sexual hot Stephen Hawking. I'll give you that. So, okay, here's the thing. I thought, or sort of forethought, if you like, that you might go into the kind of meritocratic angle in terms of what the left's issue with the royals might be. But I also wondered, and maybe this is me sort of doing a self-strokey ego thing, but do you think it's maybe that on the left we subscribe to critical thinking more, or does that sound really arrogant?
It might sound arrogant, but it's not untrue. I just can't understand what. That's not true. I do understand some of what the right wing get out of like thoughtlessly backing the Queen because she's the Queen and she's like, because I used to be really religious as well, and it's got that kind of fervor, that smell of it, doesn't it? Like, don't question this. It's who we are.
Yeah.
Like I used to feel a lot of comfort believing in religion because, much like the Queen, like they're better than me. They've got a plan, and all of that. You get this like sense of there must be something bigger out there than me if these things happen, and it brings a sense of relief to not have to worry because it's not in your control. But that's absolutely not how we think. To me, I just find it really gauche, and it's like I don't even like the way that the class system when we talk about it works. Lower class, upper class.
Yeah,
you're not above anyone. You have more money, you have more social mobility. Absolutely, that doesn't mean that you're better. It's some of the best people I've ever met have been dirt poor and have been incredibly intelligent, and some of the thickest pricks I've ever met in my entire life have been upper middle class. I worked with a couple of them, and every time we had a conversation, I just used to be like, how do you not fall down more?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a big thing. Like, one of my favorite things is seeing working class people kind of run rings around the people who were interviewing them. I've seen it a couple of times. I mean, love him or hate him, I saw it a couple of times with Russell Brand when he was making his big thing about like addressing tax avoidance, and he was appearing on Newsnight and all that stuff. And to some extent, right, here's a bit of a curveball. Perhaps this will lose me some YouTube subscribers that I desperately need. But to some extent, I saw it with Dapper Laughs. So I used to kind of know him-ish, like from the London comedy circuit. And he is about as working class as you can get. He sounds like a wide boy. I think he was an estate agent before he kind of got big with his comedy stuff. And he caught a lot of flack for jokes that, had they been said by Jimmy Carr, would not have caught anywhere near as much flack. And when he raised that point, people then accused him of sort of playing the class card, almost. I was like, well, hang on a second. That doesn't... Like, you're not even answering what he's saying,
Well, I think a big part of it is as well, I've had it, like, just to get all intellectual on your ass. I've been having this conversation.
That's what we're here for, yeah.
A little bit of intellectuality on the ass. But I've been having a really long conversation the last couple of days about cancel culture and about why cancel culture is absolutely a thing for us, for the left. Because if you're right wing and you show no contrition whatsoever, how can you ever be cancelled? Boris, how long has Boris Johnson been in the headlines every single day for months, being slated? Worst prime minister ever, worst approval rating ever, lied to the British public, taking us all for fools. Are they laughing at us? Bodies pile high, over and over and over and over and over again. And he's not contrite. He was like, yeah, sorry about that, but here's a joke about Partygate. You
Yeah.
can't cancel a man like that because he feels no shame. But like, if I'd done something in my personal life, if I'd like had an affair with a married guy, and it came out and everyone was like, "You're disgusting and awful," I'd be like, "I'm just going to delete my online life and just hide," because
Yeah.
I feel contrition. You can't you can't make people feel contrition if they don't. And one of the issues that we have with right wingers who are more socially mobile, who think they're more intelligent, who think that because they've got money they're better, you can't cancel them because they think that we're just peons
Yeah.
shouting outside their houses like the torch wielding villagers of old, and so you can't cancel them.
Yeah, the other arse cheek on the same arse as cancel culture is entitlement, really, isn't it? It's like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I should lose my show for using this racial slur or slapping this woman around the face. Like, I think I have a God-given right to present on this network at this time. And I mean, the reality, I think, of cancel culture is that, firstly, I'm not sure I really believe in it. But secondly, if there were such a thing as cancel culture, really actually what it is a cancel tier. So you drop down from a CNN or an ITV or, Good Morning Britain, and then you go down to this sub tier where, the big networks aren't really interested in you because you did that thing or you said that thing that people found distasteful. Well, now you're sort of projected into this second division of stuff, like your Talk TV, your GB News, and you're doing This Morning with Schofield interview, like talking about cancel culture. But do you know what I mean? Like you're not cancelled. You're still out there doing your I've been cancelled tour. But you're now being contracted in by a different sort of subset of media, it seems.
It seems to me it actually goes the opposite way because there's been relative unknowns who have managed to leverage their way into higher tiers by saying I've been cancelled. And I just like, honestly, every time I have this discussion, it just confuses me so much how people can be like, woman says she's cancelled for her opinions about trans people on pages 2, 4, and 7 of the Daily Mail, the Mirror, the Express, the Guardian, the iPaper, and in an interview with BBC News. And I'm like, are you fucking joking me?
Yeah. I often wondered, like, if I ever did another Edinburgh show, would I get more audience if I suggested that I was too edgy for the BBC? That's why the BBC never came knocking. It wasn't because I was fucking shit. It's just like too edgy. I was pre-cancelled.
Give it a go. That's your next comedy show right there, pre-cancelled. Just
Yeah.
come out and be like, fuck you all. Right, anyway, let's get on with it.
Yeah. Let's move on to our next topic for tonight. So Partygate. I feel like I talk about this every week, at least once or twice. 30 letters in, I believe, at the last count. People are actually asking other MPs to hold back because they're worried that if they reach the 54 too quickly, the candidates that want to go for the leadership won't have their campaigns and backers ready. So it's both entirely possible that we will see a vote of no confidence next week, and simultaneously entirely possible that it will be delayed for a little while longer. Where do you see this going in the next few days?
I think it's probably not going to happen as quick as it should. But I also think it's a really complicated situation because people like you and I that are immersed in it, I think we have a good read on the situation with the fact that there is nobody in that party that is up to snuff with replacing Boris Johnson. I mean, like, and by that I mean doing a quality job, because let's be honest, I could put this bottle in the Houses of Parliament and it'd do a better job than Boris Johnson. But there's nobody in the party that stands the job of weathering the scrutiny of the person after Boris Johnson.
Yeah.
And I just don't know how that's going to play out, because the issue is there's this gut feeling inside me. Anybody that's watched your podcast will know, or anybody that's read anything that I've written recently will know, like Partygate on a personal level has made me hate this man viscerally. But my God, if he's not good for damaging the Tory party. And so as much as I'm like, you're a piece of shit, get out of power, and certainly because like his leadership is causing real serious harm to people, to human beings every single day, I also don't necessarily want it yet, because I don't want people to think slap a different coat of paint on the Tory party, they're fine. And it's like, they're still all there. It's
Yeah.
still the same sharks. You just can't see them now because the fucking light of Boris Johnson's bulb head's gone out.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw a few tweets. It was a couple of weeks ago where somebody was saying like, is Boris Johnson still an electoral asset? And the person replied back like, yeah, to Labour, like a gif of everyone laughing like underneath it. I was like, yeah, I mean, it's kind of, that's where we're at. And as you mentioned a minute ago, he's really good for Labour at the moment, and it works incredibly well for anyone that's trying to progress the cause of tactical voting, ejecting Tories from power. Not even necessarily working towards a Labour majority, but just trying to get some sort of coalition in power that can start fixing some of the fucking mess that they've created. To have Boris Johnson still in number 10 when we come round to another general election is frankly kind of a bit of a wet dream for the left.
A little bit. I think when it comes to tactical voting in particular, I've been having a lot of discussions about it because I went from kind of ambivalence towards tactical voting because I'm lucky enough to live in the Labour area to realise how beneficial it would be to the cause of the left.
Yeah.
Especially because, I've always considered myself like a patient lefty, like a patient far lefty. My like ideal politics is way further left than a lot of my friends.
Yeah.
So I know that tactical voting is perfect for me because I will, in the long run, be heard. But turning around to somebody else who is a Labour voter and saying you're going to have to vote Lib Dem and they're going to get in might be a bit of a gut punch. But it's also, people have to stop thinking in short term about politics, and that's what drives me insane. Because if you look at what the Tory party have been doing and are doing and will be doing,
Yeah.
they have the long game in their sights. They know that they can disenfranchise enough people from voting against them that they'll maintain power. They know that they can put people off of standing up against them by stopping people protesting. And then it seems like the country's happy because nobody's protesting, but you can't if it's illegal. So it's short-term pain for long-term gain. Sure, you might have a representative that isn't your ideal lefty party, but it's a left-wing person. And then we get a broad coalition. We move forward with politics. We diversify it. We get a different voting system in because FPTP's shite, to coin one of my dad's favourite words. And then we'll actually have the democracy that we live in instead of this sham democracy that I've been talking about all day.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, my fear is that if we continue down this road, where Boris Johnson is this sort of, supposed electoral asset, right? Let's say we get up to the next general election. At the moment, they are 11 points behind. Boris Johnson is ferociously unpopular, getting booed on the way into the Jubilee thing today. Fucking hilarious. What I worry about, and perhaps I could get your thoughts on this is where he's at now, right? On the tail end of Partygate and the tail end of the pandemic, we hope. What's the public's perception going to be of him in a year's time when all of this has kind of faded out a little bit? Patterson / second jobs, all of that's kind of faded out a little bit. And we're in a situation where like the journo-political machine really goes into overdrive exactly the same way as it did with when it was like Jeremy Corbyn and Theresa May or Jeremy Corbyn and Boris Johnson. Once they get in there and they start funneling out the lies, the misrepresentations, it's on the cover of every single newspaper. Like, I really worry that 11-point lead will collapse down to like best case scenario 2-point lead or a 3-point lead. And then just at the ballot box, we fucking lose it. Like, I don't know what that would do to me psychologically if the Tories are in for like another 5 years.
I lie awake worrying about it because the thing is, I think people that are outside politics see it as an abstract worry. But, when you realize how much politics infects your life, if you want to put it in the most honest terms, you start to realize how precarious the situation that we're in. And if that does happen, God knows where we're going to end up, Like, they're just going to keep stripping away freedom and rights and ability to talk. They're going to make the press fall more in line, which they're doing by trying to privatise Channel 4, even though 96% of people said they didn't want it, Nadine, and all this other stuff. They're going to keep doing what they're doing. And so we have to weather it. We have to figure out ways to fight back. And that's why it makes me laugh so much. I spoke really openly about this the other day. Someone took photos of me at Byline Fest and posted them online like they were some kind of amateur spy and accused me of being a right-wing fascist. And I was like, yeah, that's me, the really outspoken camp gay guy from up north. I'm a fascist, you
Yeah.
freak. But the reason why I do what I do, the reason why I get up every day and like research the news and write it down and then make videos and talk about it and tweet people and try and reach new people and talk to like complete strangers about it whenever I can. The reason why I do that is because I hate to sound like one of those weird Americans that's like the MSM, but you cannot trust what's in the mainstream media. We have to have these conversations in person. We have to get the narrative out there that this is unreality that we're living in now. We're in the post-truth era.
Yeah.
It's writ large everywhere you look. So the time is past to keep going by the old playbook of like, the honest person will win, or exactly like Dominic fucking Raab says every time he's interviewed, and he goes, well, you'll just have to tell us how you feel at the ballot box. Because when you're being lied to constantly, you think it's a good idea to vote for the baddies. But if you can be told the objective truth, and that's what I strive for. I'm not like, you must get it as well. I get told that I'm like a Labour lover, a Starmer lover, and blah, blah, blah all the time, or apparently a fascist.
Yeah.
I'm just fucking honest. Yes, I come at it from a lefty spin because that's who I am. But it also happens that the truth leans left.
Yeah.
I'm just being honest. If you don't like it, then continue living in unreality. But don't blame me when you're being goose stepped out of your house because you didn't say you fucking genuflect to your picture of dear leader Boris in the morning.
Yeah. I get a lot of the, I guess, sort of similar abuse to what you and Tan and Billy and everyone get. I get people telling me I'm a centrist has become a sort of, a swear word in some circles. It's like, Aid talks like a socialist, but he's a fucking centrist. I'm just like, oh, it's fucking why is there some stink on that? Like, why, like, when did it become such a bad thing to sort of sit in the center and sort of mediate and try and be realistic about what can be achieved and appeal to voters on like both sides? I
think the reason people get so mad with centricism, I think, is because in the world that we're in now, like if we were in an ideal world and people were like, here's my ideas as a right winger, and the left were like, well, here's my idea as a left winger, and a centrist would go, we'll take that bit of that and that bit of that, and then that's fine. But the problem with centricism now is that a lot of people see it as like the left wing's over here going, people are starving and we need to feed them, and the right wing's like, kill the babies. And then the centrists are like, I mean, both of you need to calm down. And that's why people get annoyed with centrists. But at the same time,
that's when, as a centrist, you go, I'll take the babies from here, you eat the babies, and then look, I fucking solved it. This is what I mean. Centrism wins every time.
So I think when it comes down to the way people act about centricism, I both get it and I don't. Like, I look at the way the Tories are and I'm like, really? Really? You want to be on the fence about this? But at the same time, we do have to be pragmatic. And this is why I get so annoyed sometimes. People in this country have to realize that it's not polarized. Everybody sits in the middle somewhere. The center is the biggest fucking place. So it's like, if your ideas are really far left and progressive, that is fantastic. You might not get them in 10, 15, 20 years. I've given up with some of the things that I think are going to happen in my lifetime. But people aren't as far right as we think either. They just get fed this narrative. And if we could break that line of sight, if we could stop people blaming the foreigners, the gays, the trans, like, then they would actually be quite decent people.
Yeah. And it's important also to remember that in my experience, and I appreciate that I move in some circles where my experience may be somewhat warped and jaded, but in my experience, when people on the very far left of the political landscape are irate and angry and call me names and create memes or whatever, I genuinely feel like, for the most part, and maybe I'm being too forgiving here, for the most part, I think their anger is coming from a good place. They want these things. They want life to be better for the whole of society. They want the services to be reinstated over here. They don't want their dad to have to catch 3 buses to get to the nearest NHS walk-in centre, etc., right? When you talk to their counterparts on the far right, the stuff that they're angry about is not coming from a good place. And I'm not suggesting that everyone on the right is evil or everyone on the left is a fucking frothing, you know, Che Guevara fan. But my experience of both of those people in the extremes is that these guys on the left tend to be coming from a good place, and the far right guys, I mean, even just the phrase far right sort of speaks for itself, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just such a weird thing to try and have a conversation with someone who's so entrenched in their politics, and they
Mm.
both are, for better or worse. And that's not an insult to anybody that's on. Well, it isn't. It's everything's an insult to the far right because you're all dickheads. But like, if you're really entrenched in far leftist politics, the only thing I will say is, and it always makes me laugh, everyone who's on the further left is what I tend to call it, is really entrenched in their idealized version of politics and what they want and how they want to get it. And that's fine. That's absolutely fine. But the problem is when someone comes from outside like me, who's like I said, I'm a more patient far lefty is the way I say it, because I've got long-term plans for how to get us to be far left
Yeah.
as a country. But when I come in and I'm like, well, the practicalities of that though, like, because someone the other day was like, we need to replace Keir Starmer with a real socialist. And I'm like, okay, what if we do that? And then he loses the next election, and then he loses the next election, and then he loses the next election. What do we do then? No response. And I was like, I'm not asking to be a dick. I'm not trying to trap you. I'm not trying to be like, see, silly far lefty, I know better than you. I'm literally asking you, if we get another socialist person to lead the Labour Party and the Labour Party's popularity tanks, what's your plan? Because it's great to be a socialist, but not if you're always in opposition. If you want to implement actual policy, you've got to claw your way closer to power. So you need to be with someone who will be electable, like Keir Starmer, who people don't like, or whoever the hell's going to replace him if he steps down because of his party gate, blah, blah, blah. You have to lobby the people like that get you elected to get some of the policy that you want. That's the way that I see it happening. And, just as an aside, one of our friends has said to us, I don't see why it's always us, the far left, that have to make the sacrifices. And I don't either. I think it's unfair. But that's the world in which we live, where a disturbing amount of people think that Boris Johnson's brilliant.
It would take a huge tidal wave of media management, which even just saying that sounds gross, right? Because you're talking about people's lives and facilities and support structures that they desperately need. But it would take a lot of PR to move the dial, to make the general public sign up for a fire-breathing socialist, the likes of which a lot of these people, is it like that's what they want. To get people to sign up for true red socialism. I was about to say true blue. I realized it was the wrong color. Forgive me. To sign up for a real, I mean, I guess what they're looking for is a sort of, a mining town or ex-Labour town, northern guy, socialist roots, who knows what it's like to be a working class lad who's now come up through the ranks in Labour. And I'm for that. And I'm not saying that can't happen, but you would need to market it to people in a way that it was accessible for them politically. It would need to be, they'd need to position themselves in a way that they outranked or outweighed or outperformed articulate. I'm not saying I'm impressed by them, but impressive adversarial candidates, both within Labour and within the Tories, who are going to have networks and friends in those upper echelons of those broadcasters and newspapers and stuff. And it's just, my personal take on it, and I could be totally wrong, I'm happy to be corrected, but my personal take is that it's utterly unrealistic to think that that type of individual right now, when we're so desperate to attain power and to start reversing some of the carnage that's been created, I think it's unrealistic that you could put somebody like that out there front and center and say, vote for this guy or this woman. I just don't think it would happen. Even Angela Rayner, who I think is fucking amazing, I think if you put her up front and center, I think she'd get mauled. And I think she's so good at what she does and so impressive. And the journey that she's been on has been incredible. And it's an indictment of society and media in general. But I can't see someone like that winning an election against the machine of the Tories,
this is the problem in that it's a system that has been built to sustain itself, and they are the epitome of it. They are the rich toffs that have
Yeah.
always made these decisions since time immemorial. And even when we've had a leftier government, it's been someone that fits that exact mold, Tony
Precisely.
Blair.
Yeah.
And now we've got Keir Starmer who's heading up Labour. And I've said it so many times, where Keir Starmer is like, I'm like, whatever. You know, he's done some stuff that's made me be like, you fucking idiot.
Yeah.
And then he's done stuff that's made me be like, yeah, good on you. Push that thing. Try and get people to vote on that. Make people listen to you. And I'm not like a huge Starmer fan, but I don't hate him. Just as the same as I was with Jeremy Corbyn. I was like, yeah, he's all right.
Yeah. I suspect you, me, and Tan, unsurprisingly, are exactly the same in that respect.
It just seems like you can't be indifferent towards them, but that's how I will always be. Always, about pretty much every politician. There are a couple of, I do love Sarah Sultana a little bit. I just love her, but like I'll always be fairly indifferent towards the leader, because ultimately you are the most famous, highest paid secretary in the world. Go push your paper, make your decisions, do your little ceremonies. I don't care. Go and fix stuff, and then have a nice sit down afterwards. I don't care.
I mean, it's kind of weird to be alive at a time where politicians are like kind of pop stars in a way.
Yeah.
Like to be a fan of a politician is kind of like, when would that ever have happened in any other decade? Am I talking out my arse there, or is that a new thing?
Well, it's always been politics was called the gentleman's game, wasn't it? Or is that football? I don't know, something like that. Yeah. But it's always been a kind of like, I'm a fan of this particular politician, but it's never been so personal. Like take Johnson, for example. If he hadn't taken the country, bent it over, and stuck it in dry, and gone, you like that, don't you, you bad
Jesus
sod?
Christ, Davey.
I would have been like indifferent towards him. But everything I've learned everything I've learned about him and his personal life has been against my knowledge. But I know that he's had 2 affairs, one of which was with a wife that had cancer. I know he's been fired twice for lying. I know that he likes fucking god-awful furniture. I know that he's got like 7 children.
Yeah.
And I know that the other day he asked someone to murder his dog. Like, I don't want to know this shit.
Yeah.
I just want you to be there and do the fucking job and make the country better. But you aren't. You suck.
Yeah.
You're so bad at your job. And there still he sits. And I'm like, how is this happening? You wouldn't accept this from... If I went into like Starbucks and the person behind the thing was like, yeah, so right. When there was all the lockdown and stuff, right, I was purposely having parties and like I might have spread the virus everywhere. I would be like, right, well, I'm not fucking coming in here then.
Yeah.
But we'll accept that from the Prime Minister. You
would cancel Starbucks, really?
Absolutely, with pleasure, especially because they still don't pay the fucking taxes.
Cunts. Let's move on, because we've still got one more topic I want to cover, and then I'm going to hit you with some quick fire questions, because I will employ hack features for this podcast if I should so wish.
Exciting.
This week saw the conclusion of the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial. The US court found in favour of Johnny Depp that his ex-wife Amber Heard had indeed defamed him when she wrote an op-ed speaking about her experience as a survivor of domestic violence. Now, as far as I can see, he presented evidence that backed up his testimony. He had incredibly expensive lawyers, as you might expect for a Hollywood star with about, I don't know, 200 million in the bank or something around. I'm sure it's in hundreds of millions. And it sounds like, I mean, I'm not an expert in all things feminism, misogyny. I don't know anyone that's gone through that experience, but it sounds like he was a huge piece of shit to her, a lot. But it also sounds like, in the interest of balance, it sounds like she may have been a bit of a loony. And I know it's not going to win me any awards from, support mental health, #BeKind lobby or anything. But I did, my takeaway from it, and I'll get yours in a second. My takeaway was that it felt like 2 incredibly out of touch millionaires who shouldn't be together, but instead of breaking up and just fucking other people, they write op-eds and sue one another. It felt like this could have all been handled privately. Like, you don't want to see me anymore? No, okay, well, I'm over here. Call me if you need. but instead we have this huge Hollywood kind of thing just played out. I don't know, like what was your feeling about that case?
The whole thing's been gross. Is the only thing I can say.
Mm.
And I've really changed my opinion of a few people that I really respected online before, because everybody's fallen into, we've talked about the footballification of politics and the dumbing down of it and all that we've just discussed.
Yeah.
And that's what this was. This is a case where potentially we're looking at a man that's hit a woman and or a woman that's hit a man, or two people that have domestically abused each other. And instead of treating that with the like severity and the reverence, we've had the memes and the jokes and like these fucking losers who like, no offense. Well, in fact, no, not no offense. You know what? If you did do this and you made your entire life about this, then you are a bit sad. Spending your entire evening watching someone's reactions and recording it, going, see that bit where she blinked really quick. That means she's lying.
Yeah.
You're not the fucking body language expert. Body language has long been a contested, like, science, if you want. What you're looking at is two people that are talking about terrible things that may or may not have happened to them. And the thing that annoys me the most, like, against my will, again, every time I've scrolled down TikTok, there's been a thing of Johnny Depp sat there with his sunglasses on and his hair tucked back going, I've lost nothing more than everything in my life because of this. And I'm like, if true, terrible, but let's not forget that you are one of the highest paid actors in Hollywood. So I'm pretty sure that you could put on an excellent performance of this. I'm not saying that Johnny Depp is 100% guilty or innocent. What I'm saying is something that people are far too fucking shy to admit. I don't know. So I don't really want to have a solid opinion, but what I do know is from what I've seen both in the UK case and this case, that's two very deeply damaged people that have been in a relationship, fucked each other up for years and years and years, and now are smearing each other left, right, and centre. And I just think it's sad and really gross that people are so willing to throw themselves behind someone because they personally like their movies, which is what it seems like.
Yeah, I mean, it's, to be fair, I'm being somewhat facetious when I'm saying like, why did it have to blow up into this big sort of, I guess the connotations of it's a sort of Hollywood ego war, right? It's him against her and multi-million-dollar fortunes and op-eds and all that. But I suppose a lot of that is kind of out of their control. Like if he feels genuinely that that op-ed was a like a malicious, I guess was the term that they used, thing that she's targeted at him, and he really feels like he didn't do anything wrong, which seems fucking batshit to me, considering what I've read, then you can see that he would go down the litigation route. What I don't understand is why that needs to be televised. Like I get it's America and everything's showbiz and he's a big Hollywood star and everything, but there's a lot of litigation that happens in America that is not televised, that doesn't turn into this big media circus. You would think at the bare minimum that even in America, that they would have some protection or some control there to say, look, guys, I know you want to go crazy. I know you want to do the National Enquirer thing, the OJ Simpson trial rehash, all that shit. It was great for ratings. We get that. But unfortunately, we have controls in place that when it is a domestic violence case, no cameras. Like you'd think bare minimum they would do that. Have some fucking compassion there and just,
No, unfortunately, I don't. I think that it sells, doesn't it? Outrage sells and disgust sells and all of that. But I don't know. It's like I said, I don't know enough. I watched a fair amount of it at the start, and I understand why people got so swept up in it. And there's no doubt in my mind that she domestically abused him. That whole thing where she was saying like, oh, did I hit you? Oh, poor baby. Oh, go to the press and tell them that you're an abused man. I was like, it gave me chills to hear that. But I also know that in the UK, 14 out of 16 things that she raised were found to have happened.
Yeah.
And, the way that I look at it is, from my own perspective, because that's the only thing I can ever do. If you, if somewhere out there right now there was recordings of the way that I'd spoken to my ex, who, he never physically hit me, but he was very abusive with some of the stuff that he did to me. If you played out of context some of the clips of stuff that I said to him where, it was the day after and I was in a really shit mood and he, said something to me, I'd be like, go fuck yourself, you pathetic child. People would be like,
you monster,
David's
Davey.
a domestic abuser.
Yeah.
And I used to, like people are like, she wasn't scared of him. I'm like, I used to rile him up on purpose because he was such a horrible human being and I was trapped in the house with him and I wanted to vent my frustration. Was it the right thing to do? No. Did it make me sound terrible? Absolutely.
Mm.
It happened for very specific reasons. And people are really, really willing to cast someone in the role of like, see, she said he was a loser, so she must be an abuser. It's like, what, like, in what marriage have you ever had it where you've argued and someone hasn't been like, stop being such a fucking loser? Like,
Yeah.
but people want to see these things in vitro. And the most disturbing thing about it is that people want to see the entire case in sort of isolation to everything else. But I saw a really brilliant TikToker yesterday who said, you don't understand that this case of a man being vindicated over a woman, despite the fact that there is out there proof that he abused her,
Mm.
is going to affect the overturning of Roe v. Wade.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's going to feed into it.
How though? Like, because like Roe v. Wade is about abortion, right, and a woman's right too. How does domestic abuse work? Like, what's the overlap there?
It's more about the fact that she can make the claims and be taken seriously and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And about kind of how women go about reporting things or, like, I mean, there's, I don't really want to go into the like rape babies and stuff like that. It
Mm.
feeds into particular things like that. And it's just such a disturbing thing to think about. Ultimately, it should never have been publicized because this is one or the other or both of them talking about domestic abuse and it colors things for other people. The
Mm.
reason that I stopped watching it is because I heard like the anger on both of their voices in those tapes, and I was like, this reminds me too much of stuff that's happened to me. I don't want to see this.
Mm.
And it's like that's a real situation that some people are going through right now, and it's being fucking televised for people to laugh at and make memes out of. And if you could prove absolutely that one or both of them were lying about something or like, that they cherry picked certain evidence, then I'd be more willing to be like, okay. But at the same time, some of the stuff she's clearly lied about. Again, I did watch some of the trial. Like she put up a couple of photos and I was like, that's literally the same photo. You just turned the color up so it looks like you've got a redder face. But it's like, at one point I started trying to gather evidence that I was going through what I was going through. And so I was like doing leading questions and like trying to like get photos together and stuff. It's all gone now because I was like, I'm never going to go to court because the UK is ridiculous. A 1.3 conviction rate for rape now. What's the point?
Yeah.
But you don't sit there and record someone unless you are nuts
Mm.
or unless it's a very particular reason. So either way around, she's got serious mental health issues that need to be addressed urgently or she's being domestically abused, or worse, both.
Yeah. I mean, it's a complex thing, isn't it? It's like you could say he's been abusive to her, and then on the face of it, as you say, sort of taking various things out of context, it appears as though she's also been abusive back to him. But you could look at that in context and say like, okay, and look, I'm sure they've examined all of this stuff in the court case, right? But you could say, was she defending herself in that instance? Is there some sort of like psychological thing where you actually internalize the abuse that you yourself have suffered and then visit it upon the abuser or who you perceive to be the abuser? And so then when you're abusing your abuser, are you really like it gets quite levels deep. Like
This is like too few people are afraid to admit that they don't know, and I'm
mm,
not. Like I don't know. I don't know. I'll never know. Only
yeah.
those two will know, regardless of this court case. Only those two will know what happened between them. But it's not just that people won't admit that they know. It's that they're so willing to simplify something
Mm.
as horrific as domestic abuse and stick it on TV and be like, "Oh my God, did you see the court case last night where she said my dog stepped on a bee?" And I'm like, in
Yeah.
any other context, in a movie or something, I'd be like, "Oh my God, yeah, I know, it was so funny."
Yeah.
In this, I'm like, "What are you doing?" The worst thing that I saw was, I'm not even joking. Someone took the audio of Amber Heard describing one of the alleged assaults,
Right.
where he like threw her over a table and then sexually assaulted her, and put like a superimposition of like a box of jurors, and then got their face on one of the jurors' face, and got them to do the like
Wow.
sexual pleasure face, and I was like, are you so sure? Are you so 100% convinced that this woman is making this up?
Yeah.
That you want to make an "I wish that was me" joke about that?
Yeah.
Because that is so sick. And I even commented on it and was like, this is disgusting. Like, whether she, even if she's making it up, this is someone recounting a rape story,
Mm.
and you're making a joke out of it and saying that you wish that was you. Like, are you actually that insane or like devoid of humanity?
Well, there's a big thing about the memes, the gifs that have been created, the various like Twitter accounts that have sprung up to spread this stuff.
Yep.
I read a thing last night or night before, whenever the verdict came in, and it was saying that it is suspected that there's been like entire bot farms contracted in
Oh yeah.
to just funnel out this fucking like mockery and piss taking. And as I say, like I'll hold my hands up and be like, look, I don't know what went on in that marriage. It sounded incredibly volatile. I don't think they should have been together. I think they should have just split up and gone opposite ways. But for some reason, they like now we are where we are. You know, they've gone into down the avenue of suing and articles in American newspapers. But I do think it's interesting just the fucking voltage behind all of the like the Twitter activity. And I think that the thing that I read somewhere was that it was like they heavily suspect that it's the same bot farms that funnel out this shit as were funneling out like Brexit shit. Like,
Yeah.
how wild is that?
But
'Cause
when you think about the long-term repercussions of a case like this,
Mm,
that's when it starts to be really sinister, because it, whether like taking the is Amber Heard telling the truth or not thing out of it,
mm,
if a woman is completely discredited and shamed and made fun of and nothinged for coming forward about domestic abuse,
yeah,
what does that say about the future? What does it say about women's rights and women's equality? What happens when the next big person steps forward and says, I was sexually assaulted by, you know, the next Weinstein. I was sexually assaulted by like X movie star.
mm.
And people are going to be like, yeah, but were you?
Well,
Were you though?
Evan Michael Wood, is that her name? She's got a case coming
With
up against.
Marilyn Manson.
Yeah, so she'll be the next one. But I do wonder if you're onto something there in terms of, like, let's say that there was a bot farm perpetuating a lot of this nonsense, a lot of this sort of mockery kind of content. You might ask yourself, okay, well, like, why would they do that? Let's say it's Putin behind it, and the Russia has a internet research agency, right, based in St. Petersburg, I believe. And you would think, okay, well, they would push out loads of pro-Brexit stuff to try and split the UK, and they would push out a load of Trump stuff to try and split the US. Why would they get behind a celebrity trial, right? But for the reasons that you've just tapped into there in terms of Roe and Wade, if this does form, even if it's not a core, like, key pillar of it, but if it does ferment the ground to begin some sort of furtheration. God, I'm making up fucking words now. But some perpetuation of the culture war, where the division actually moves from Trump versus Hillary to full on like women's rights. Then it kind of makes sense to do something like this, right? And you probably will
Yeah,
see it again with Evan Michael Wood and Marilyn Manson.
absolutely. Like, if you think about the reason those whole things exist for Russia, it's to sow discontent.
Mm,
Brexit was great because it was a political movement that was also based very, very thoroughly in like the roots of who you are as a Brit. You know, what do you believe in? Do you think Britain can go on its own and be a strong economy? Blah blah blah.
yeah.
When it comes to this is about the fundamentals of women's rights, and you know, I just don't. I just don't know. But is it worth the risk? That, like you've said, I've read the stuff as well, saying that Breitbart invested heavily in pushing out this disinformation and working on stories and getting people to publish stories about Amber Heard.
Yeah.
I think they need not have done it because I think a lot of people have made their minds up already. But when you come down to it, what's the best way to tear an entire society asunder? Focus on 51% of the population
Yeah.
and make their rights up for grabs, and then feed in with like, oh, well, look at this one. This one lied about domestic assault. Because in vitro, you're like, what a bitch, as if she lied about domestic assault. Who would do that? That's but it feeds into the bigger picture of what about when you need to come forward about your domestic assault that you very much experienced in a real way, and people are like, oh, did you step on a bee? Like,
Yeah.
what's it going to be like for you then?
Yeah, I hadn't even considered that in terms of the repercussions of some of the memes, some of the jokes that have come out will absolutely get wheeled out. Like people will go down the pub, and their like female friends will come in the pub and talk about something or share something, and it will be dismissed and diluted as though like, oh come on, I mean, look, you saw what happened to Amber Heard. Is it like that? Because that sounded like bullshit. You know, it's yeah, I don't know. It's a troubling case and a troubling precedent to have set, I suppose.
I guess the main thing I want to say about it is be 100% sure.
Mm.
Be 100% sure about everything that you're saying, because if you're even wrong about one of the things, you are still making fun of someone that's been through domestic abuse. And I don't want to do that either way around. I don't want to say he's a dickhead. I don't want to say she's a dickhead, because I don't know. I'd rather just tap out and be like, I'm not going to touch either of you with a barge pole because you both seem like very damaged people. And that's where I end with it. I don't want to find entertainment in people's stories of domestic abuse.
Yeah. Yeah. It's nuts, isn't it? It's sort of infotainment, factfatainment. I don't know what the right word would be, but it's, yeah, you're right. It's fucking gross. Somebody's just dropped into the live chat. I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly. Athol Mills.
Yeah, hi Ethel.
He says, since the trial started, the amount of cases in the US has been dropped, that have dropped by victims has skyrocketed. Which, like, how would you be shocked by that? It's like,
Imagine thinking that's what you're going to have to go through.
Yeah, if this is the output, imagine this, like seeing people joking about it, and this is so similar, you know, to what you've gone through, and it's your ex-husband, and you know, there were times that you slapped him back or scratched him, or that you told your friends that no, it wasn't that big a deal, don't worry, you know, so you've kind of diminished your own case, and you've seen these parallels with their thing. You would, I mean, you'd be only human to then think, actually, do you know what? This is just not worth the fucking trouble. I'll just move states, you know? This is a really depressing subject to close the podcast on, Davey, and you've joined me for an hour, so thank you. But I've got some quick fire questions I'm going to throw at you to try and lighten the mood. Are you ready?
Hit me. Yes.
Okay, here we go. So, question 1. What's your favorite color?
Black, because I'm an emo.
What song would play at your funeral?
Ooh, that would be Evanescence, My Immortal, because I love that song.
Wow, you are emo. Who would you like to play you in a movie?
Ooh, interesting.
Who would you like to play you in a movie?
Everybody, do you know what I used to get all the time, especially when I had short black hair, was everyone used to say I looked like a younger Keanu Reeves. So I would like a younger Keanu Reeves to play me so that it plays true to life.
Young Keanu. Okay,
yeah.
Cool. What's an episode of your life that you would donate to a DVD collection entitled Times I Was a Fucking Belpeen?
Oh my God, all the way through university, Christ. I feel so bad for everyone that went to university with me, because I'd gone from being so shy to being so opinionated. And so like every class I'd be like, me, this is what I think about this. And honestly, I look back and I'm like, shut up, shut the fuck up and let someone else talk.
Okay. So university. Okay.
Yes.
First year of uni or?
All of it.
Right. Okay, fine. Have you ever punched anyone?
In self-defense classes and once in real life, yes.
Okay. You said you would like Keanu Reeves to play you in a movie. Who have you actually been told you look like?
Literally, I get Keanu Reeves a lot. I tend to get, because of my eye shape, I tend to get a lot of like Eastern people. Yeah. Like one thing that used to happen whenever I had my hair and eyebrows dyed black and I had no facial hair was I used to get so many Japanese people come up to me in the street and start talking to me in Japanese, and I'd be like, what? And they'd be like, oh, sorry, do you not speak Japanese? I'd be like, fucking no. So I pretty much Japan.
Okay. Yeah, we can go for, broad stroke there, but fine. What's the last thing you did that you really wish you hadn't?
God.
You can be as liberal with the truth as you like.
um, I've done some sexcapades recently, which I've not done. But I guess the best answer to that question is, I wish I'd left my job the very, very second that I got called the F slur instead of sticking around for years afterwards and just hating
Ooh.
it.
Yeah. Does that sort of eat away? Are you just like, I should have just told that motherfucker to piss off?
Yeah, I should have just been like, if you're not going to fire him, I quit.
Yeah, fair, fair. Okay, I've got two more to go. Complete this sentence. My name is DavieMoo, and I will set you on fire if you...
Breathe. No, eat crunchy food.
Low
Eat
bar.
crunchy food.
Crunchy
Eat,
food, really?
Yeah, honestly, the noise of like someone sent me a voice clip the other day and they were like, and I literally just sent back, ah! And they were
Oh my
like, what?
God.
And I was like, how dare you eat crunchy food in front of me?
Wow. So like, well, so if I was eating a packet of crisps in front of you, that would upset you?
Yes.
Wow.
Even though I don't react to it outwardly now, and I'd be like, oh my, really? I went there too. In my brain, I'd be going, murder him, rip out his soul through his nose.
Where does that come from? Why?
I haven't, it's called misophonia, and I've had it since, like, it got really bad when I was a teenager, and I've sort of wrestled it under control now, but.
Okay. All right, good to know. So next time, did I eat crisps in front of you when I saw you at Byline?
No, thank God.
Good, okay. Like,
That's why we're still talking, Ed.
I was like, what if I was like eating Pringles the whole time and like I thought we were getting along great, but you, in your mind, you were like, fuck this crunchy motherfucker.
I'd have just been like, I'm just going to go and get a beer for like 17 minutes.
Yeah. Okay, right, here we go. So, last question, word association. I'm going to say a series of words. You have to say the first word that pops into your head. As soon as I say the word, are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, first one, clouds.
Sky.
Beer.
Drunk.
Stupid.
Boris Johnson.
Cocaine.
Boris Johnson.
Has he ever been busted for cocaine?
Not cocaine, no, but we know that he does it.
Okay. All right. Oh, actually, before we go, I've got to jump onto the hashtag. So if anyone is listening to this for the first time, I'm trying to get Q&As from people on Twitter. So I've got a hashtag, Boris fucks livestock, obviously. So I'm going to go to the browser now and see what's happening on Twitter. So first question. Super Tansky is saying predictions for Johnson in coming weeks. We kind of covered a little bit of this earlier, but let's spool forward past like the next couple of weeks. Do you think he'll still be here leading the Tory party into the next election?
No. I think the Tory party will eventually rise up and realise that they can't continue to implement stuff with a leader who is weak and compromises him. So I think it's a matter of time. I think it will be longer than we'd like, but I don't think it will be until the next election.
No,
unless he calls it soon, and then we have no choice.
I think you're right. I think there'll be. I think we'll get to a vote of no confidence. Then I think he'll win it. But I think through that vote of no confidence, that period, I think a couple of challenges will probably start to poke their heads above the parapet. My money is on Tobias Ellwood, possibly Johnny Mercer. I don't know yet if there's maybe Tugendhat. I don't know. Tugendhat and Elwood are sort of going tit for tat with the should we rejoin the single market thing.
I think that's staged.
There is that theory, isn't there? Which I hadn't considered before our mutual friend mentioned it this morning. It would be a clever play, be quite a sort of devious way of handling it.
Best thing to do, test the waters, see which most of the electorate says, and then be like, yeah, I was right, he's right, you know.
Yeah, you could be right. I don't know. My hope is that either it's a 2-horse race and it's just Tugendhat and Elwood, because the rest of them are fucking hopeless. Let's move on to the next question. This is from our man in Trier. My thoughts and your thoughts on possible leadership challenges for the upcoming leadership race to possibly replace Alexander. So we sort of covered that. And then a bit more cheery. What TV shows have you both been binge watching lately? What have you been watching, Davey?
I absolutely inhaled Stranger Things.
Really?
Yeah, and I'm really glad I did, because people are just so liberal with spoilers online now, and it fucks me off. So I managed to watch it really quickly, and if anybody doesn't know this about me, my dissertation was on horror. I have hundreds of horror films over there. I'm obsessed with horror, and whilst it's still not the best horror thing on YouTube, on Netflix, this season of Stranger Things does horror fantastically. So if you're a fan of horror, you need to watch it.
Okay, well that's good to know. I've recently, actually, just on Stranger Things, we did the first season of it, I think. I don't know why we stopped watching it. It may even be because we jumped onto Ozark, that's the last big thing that I've got to the end of, and I have to say it was fucking outstanding. I was like,
I need to watch that.
Yeah, it's not a horror thing, but it's it's really gripping, and it's like the trajectory that the characters go on is actually quite startling. Like the first episodes of it, from there right up to the last episode, it's kind of like a Breaking Bad sort of whoa, these these people have changed, So I highly recommend Ozark, although that's an easy recommendation to make. What else have I been watching? Nothing really. Nothing's really, bitten me recently. Nothing's made me go, oh, this is fucking amazing.
Most of what I watch tends to be horror. I do I watched Once Upon a Time, which I quite enjoyed, because I also love anything to do with magic and sword fighting, because it's cool.
Yeah.
But genuinely, and I mention this every opportunity I can. The Haunting of Hill House is a Netflix series. The second season's quite good, but the first season is just it's a masterclass in what horror should be. It's really so well done. It's brilliant. The acting is amazing. Cinematography is amazing. Everything's amazing. And also, one of the lead characters, the girl who's also in the second season, she's one of my I'm gay. My sexuality is men, but also Doja Cat, a couple of actresses, and this girl, right, because she's just so pretty. So I always enjoy watching it, because I'm just
yeah, that's nice. That's good. One to check out. I was just having a quick look to see if there were any more questions on the hashtag. That's it for this time. So we've been chatting for an hour and a quarter, Davey. This is a long episode for me. So we're going to have to wrap it up there. Thank you so much, though, for joining me again tonight for a beer and a chat, putting the world to rights. Again, if it's your first time checking out the podcast, there are 2 episodes every week. On Wednesday, I do a solo episode where I just talk about the news and try to make sense of what's happening in the world. On a Friday night, I get a guest on and we have a beer. Tonight, myself and Davey have both been enjoying Brewdog, the exact same brand, the exact same specific can. Not the exact same specific can, you know what I mean. That guest might be someone from the world of academia or politics, or just a good friend. I do run a Patreon where I put all of the episodes up first, and then they go on to the other platforms 2 or 3 days later. So if you want first access to that and any other bonus content, jump on the Patreon. It's patreon.com/AidThompson. Thank you so much. I will be back next Wednesday. Don't forget to follow DavieMoo on Twitter and TikTok and check out his blog. It's called Politically Enraged, and you can find it if you Google it. I'll catch up with you next week. Once again, thanks, DavieMoo.
You're welcome.
Good night. Bye.